I'm going to talk about improvement now. The organization shall determine and select opportunities for improvement and implement any necessary actions to meet customer requirements and enhance customer satisfaction. That means something has to have improved. So if I come into a place and ask the question, what improved in the last year, and they tell me nothing, then we're off to a rocky start, and we have to have additional kind of conversation about what the requirements of the standard are. The requirement to improve the processes in here at least 5 or 6 places, and so we expect some kind of improvement in some way. Now we're going to talk about nonconformity and corrective action. When a nonconformity occurs, including any arising from complaints, the organization shall react to it and, as applicable, take action to control it or deal with the consequences. So there's some more to this. You're required to evaluate the need for action to eliminate the causes of the nonconformity and to implement any action needed. So what if you decide you don't need any action? Well, you have to openly state that somewhere in your system. We've reviewed and analyzed this thing, determined the causes, decided we don't need to implement any action, and the auditor will leave you alone. If you just skip all that and don't document it, the auditor won't leave you alone. There's a requirement here to review the effectiveness of any corrective action taken, which means that if you do change something, you're expected to go back later on as determined by you and make a determination if that worked. You have to update risks and opportunities and make changes to the system if necessary. But if not necessary, you don't need to. You just need to document what that decision is. It says corrective action shall be appropriate to the effects of the nonconformities encountered. So if somebody didn't sign off on a paperwork or there's some other minor thing and you want to do a finger shaking at him and have that be the action, that might be enough. It might also not be enough, and you might need to change the process so that that's no longer a requirement. The organization shall retain documented information as evidence of the nature of the nonconformities and any actions taken and the results of any corrective action. This doesn't necessarily require you to keep records of your root cause analysis, but I suggest you do so. The most common framework that I see these days as it applies to the corrective action is an 8D analysis. And as part of that, you define what the problem statement is. You have an organized methodology as to how you did containment. There's a recognized methodology for determining the cause of any problem, and it leads you through how to make a determination of whether or not that worked, and that's one I see. But there's no specific requirement in the ISO standards as to how to do any of this stuff. You might want to do a narrative story. You might have a form you want to do. It's up to you. And I think this is the last video we're going to do. It's about corrective action failure modes. It's about ways the corrective action system can go wrong, and it's worth taking a look at. So here's how I audit the corrective action system as an auditor. First question I ask is, what are the rules for issuing a corrective action? Are you required to issue one for your customer complaint? Are you required to issue one for a lot of customer complaints? Are you required to issue one for a nonconformity on an external audit? Are you required to issue one for a nonconformity on an internal audit? I'd look at all those rules and find out if that's being done somehow. Second question is, are corrective actions being assigned and acted on? It's one thing to issue them. It's another thing for somebody to act on them. Third thing is, does the documentation of all of this follow the rules that are set out in the corrective action plan? And that's up to you to decide what the plan is, but it's up for me to come in and check and see if that were done properly. Next question is root cause analysis. Has there been some kind of cause analysis done? The preferred method for this is the 5 method, but it's not necessarily required as part of the standard that you do that. But you do have to arrive at a cause for the problem so that you can fix something. Next thing is, are there action plans? Are they actually being implemented on time? Sometimes there's a deadline. This plan will be implemented by September 1st, and it doesn't get implemented by September 1st. Then what have I got? And then finally, are there repeat violations? Are there situations where the same corrective action gets issued over and over again, which says to me that there's either lack of commitment or an ineffective corrective action program? Right, this is the last clause of the standard. We're almost finished. The organization shall continually improve the suitability, adequacy, and effectiveness of the quality management system. That means you have to improve something. We had to talk about that earlier in 10.1. The requirement to do continual improvement is in several places in the standard, including the part where you committed to it in the quality policy. That means I have to see some kind of improvement somehow, some way in the organization in order for you to meet this requirement. And that's basically what the whole thing says. These three items of the above are basically already found elsewhere.